Sorry, I'm trying to hold still.
We were kidnapped off the trail in an instant by massive creatures that powered over us. Hours later, we woke up inside a hidden Bigfoot village, surrounded by giant Sasquatches, staring in dead silence. When authorities found us, I was carrying something impossible, an object that would shatter everything science thought it understood about Bigfoot. The hiking party consisted of myself, Devin Harper, with my companions Mara and Kellen. At approximately 12:10, Mara signaled for a halt. She had detected movement uphill to our right, beyond the visible tree line. The sound was distinct, heavy displacement of vegetation accompanied by what appeared to be bipedal rhythm. The pattern was consistent with something large, moving deliberately through brush rather than the erratic scatter typical of deer or elk. Kellen moved to the upslope side of the trail to gain a better vantage point. I remained with Mara, listening. The sound increased in volume and proximity. Whatever was moving through the forest was approaching our position rapidly and without apparent concern for stealth. The cadence suggested two-legged locomotion with a stride length far exceeding human norms. Within seconds, the sound shifted from uphill movement to lateral displacement. It was now parallel to our position and closing distance. Kellen stepped back onto the trail and stated that we needed to move immediately. His tone carried an urgency I had never heard from him. Even during high-risk rescue operations, could we escape before whatever it was reached us? We did not discuss options or assess terrain. Instinct overrode training. All three of us began running downhill, away from the established trail, into uncharted forest. The decision was irrational and violated fundamental wilderness protocol. But the speed and intensity of the approaching movement left no room for deliberation. I lost visual contact with the trail markers within 15 seconds. The forest floor was uneven, covered with exposed roots, fallen branches, and moss-slicked stones. Maintaining balance required constant adjustments. Running at full speed through such terrain invited injury, but stopping felt impossible. Mara was directly ahead of me by approximately 10 feet. Kellen was behind and to my left. We had no destination, no planned rally point, no understanding of the terrain ahead. We were fleeing based purely on adrenaline and the overwhelming sense that remaining stationary meant confrontation with something we were not equipped to face. How could we escape when every path was unknown? The trees blurred past. My breathing became labored. My heart rate spiked beyond sustainable levels. I focused entirely on maintaining forward momentum and avoiding obstacles. The sound behind us did not diminish. If anything, it seemed to multiply, as though multiple sources were now converging on our position from different vectors. Mara disappeared from my field of view. There was no warning, no audible impact, no cry for help. One moment she was visible ahead of me, navigating between two large cedar trunks. The next moment, she was gone. I slowed instinctively, attempting to locate her, but forward momentum carried me past the point where she had vanished. Was she still alive, or had the forest already claimed her? I turned my head to look back and caught a fractional glimpse of an enormous figure moving laterally across the slope. It was upright, massively built, and covered in dark brown hair. It moved with startling speed despite its size. In its grip was Mara, held from behind with one arm across her torso. Her feet were off the ground. She was not struggling. Whether from shock, injury, or restraint, I could not determine. Kellen shouted something unintelligible and veered sharply to his right, attempting to break toward denser cover. His strategy was sound. If we could separate and force our pursuers to choose individual targets, at least one of us might evade capture. But the forest was not empty. Whatever had taken Mara was not acting alone. A second figure emerged from behind a moss-covered boulder approximately 20 feet ahead of Kellen's new trajectory. This one was equally massive, perhaps 8 feet in height, with shoulders broad enough to suggest a body mass exceeding 500 pounds. It moved into Kellen's path with perfect timing, as though his change of direction had been anticipated. How could something so large move with such precision? Kellen attempted to stop, planting his left foot and pivoting backward. The figure closed the distance in 2 strides. It reached down with both arms and lifted Kellen off the ground as though he weighed nothing. Kellen's legs kicked briefly, then went still. The figure turned upslope and began moving with Kellen secured against its chest. I watched them ascend through the underbrush until the forest swallowed them completely. I was alone. My legs continued moving, but rational thought had fractured. I no longer knew which direction I was running or whether I was moving towards safety or deeper into danger. My vision narrowed. My hearing dulled except for the sound of my own breathing and the rapid thud of my boots against uneven ground. Something struck my left ankle from behind. The impact was precise and devastatingly effective. My leg buckled mid-stride, and my forward momentum converted instantly into an uncontrolled fall. I hit the ground hard, shoulder first, and rolled twice before coming to a stop against the base of a rotting stump. Before I could attempt to rise, pressure clamped down on my right shoulder and left ankle simultaneously. The grip was immense, far stronger than any human hand. I was lifted partially off the ground and rotated onto my back. My vision filled with the image of a face that should not exist. The creature loomed over me, its features simultaneously primate and alien. The brow ridge was pronounced, the jaw massive and square. Eyes the color of dark amber stared down at me with unmistakable intelligence. The face was framed by coarse reddish-brown hair that extended down across a chest broad enough to block out the canopy above. I attempted to speak, to scream, to do anything that might assert control or summon help. No sound emerged. The pressure on my shoulder increased. My vision darkened at the edges. I felt myself being lifted, then carried. The motion was rhythmic, purposeful, and steady. Was I heading somewhere or being shown the fate of others who had vanished before me? Then I felt nothing at all. Consciousness returned in fragments. I became aware first of motion, a gentle swaying that suggested suspension rather than ground contact. Then came sensory input, the smell of cedar and damp earth, the distant sound of wind moving through high branches, and the sensation of restraint at both wrists. Where could they have taken me, and why? I opened my eyes to a reality that contradicted every geographical and biological framework I possessed. I was lying on a wooden platform approximately 8 feet square, constructed from interwoven branches and secured to the trunk of what appeared to be an old-growth Douglas fir. The platform was solid underfoot despite its organic composition, suggesting engineering principles that went beyond simple stacking. Crossbeams had been lashed together using what looked like braided plant fiber, each joint reinforced with a weaving pattern that distributed weight evenly across the structure. My wrists were bound in front of me with similar fibrous material. The binding was tight, but not circulation restricting. It allowed minimal movement while preventing any possibility of pulling free through brute force. The fibers themselves were unlike any cordage I recognized. Gray-green in color, slightly rough in texture, and possessing a tensile strength that felt comparable to modern synthetic rope. I sat up slowly, testing for injury. My shoulder throbbed where I had been gripped during capture. My left ankle was tender but functional. No bones appeared broken. No bleeding was evident. Whatever had rendered me unconscious had been achieved through applied pressure rather than blunt trauma. Could I move? Or would any action provoke a deadly reaction? The platform where I had awakened was not isolated. Looking outward, I could see an entire network of similar structures extending through the forest canopy in multiple directions. Platforms connected to platforms via crude but functional bridges made of woven vines and stripped branches. Some structures were simple and open like the one I occupied. Others had been enclosed with walls constructed from sheets of bark and bundled vegetation, creating hut-like dwellings with visible doorways and what appeared to be ventilation gaps near the roof lines. I estimated my height above ground level at between 80 and 100 feet, based on the trunk diameter at my position and the visible distance to the forest floor below. This altitude placed me well within the upper canopy layer, where primary branches were thickest, and sunlight penetration was sufficient to support the platform network's weight. Movement drew my attention to a structure approximately 30 feet to my left. A figure emerged from one of the enclosed huts and stepped onto a connecting platform with practiced ease. The figure was upright, bipedal, and covered entirely in dark brown hair, except for the face, palms, and soles of the feet. Height was difficult to gauge from a distance, but the individual stood at least 7 feet tall, with a body mass that suggested extreme musculature beneath the hair covering. The figure moved across the platform toward a ladder constructed from braided vines and descended out of sight. Its movements were fluid and confident, demonstrating familiarity with the three-dimensional environment that would take a human years of training to replicate. There was no hesitation at edges, no testing of handholds, no visible concern for the lethal drop below. If they could move this effortlessly, could I ever hope to match their speed or stealth? Within minutes, additional figures became visible throughout the settlement. I counted at least 12 distinct individuals moving between platforms, entering and exiting structures, and transporting objects whose purpose I could not immediately determine. Height varied among them, with the smallest standing perhaps 6.5 feet and the largest exceeding 9 feet. All shared similar physical characteristics: broad shoulders, long arms extending nearly to the knees, and legs disproportionately thick compared to human norms. None of them carried visible metal tools. What implements I could observe appeared to be stone, bone, or shaped wood. One individual carried a container that looked like it had been carved from a single piece of hardwood. Another held what appeared to be a sharpened stone blade, secured to a wooden handle with wrapped cordage. Communication between individuals occurred through low vocalizations that ranged from guttural rumbles to higher-pitched clicking sounds. These were accompanied by elaborate hand gestures and changes in posture that clearly conveyed meaning. The exchanges were brief and purposeful, lacking the casual quality of idle conversation. This suggested language structure with functional grammar rather than simple animal calls. Did they understand each other better than we could ever hope to? And could they understand us? I remained motionless on my platform, documenting everything within visual range. The settlement's layout indicated long-term occupation. Storage areas were evident, marked by clusters of woven baskets and bundles suspended from overhead branches. Workspaces had been established where stripped bark and plant materials were piled in organized stacks. One large platform appeared to serve as a communal gathering area, its surface cleared and marked with carved symbols I could not interpret. The air temperature at canopy level was noticeably cooler than ground level, with steady wind movement that caused the entire structure to sway gently. The motion was constant but not disorienting, similar to the feeling of being aboard a stable ship. The platforms moved in concert with the trees, flexing slightly with each gust but never approaching instability. I tested my bindings by rotating my wrists in opposite directions, applying gradual tension to the fibers. The material had minimal stretch but showed slight give when twisted. Over the course of several minutes, I managed to create approximately half an inch of looseness. It was not enough to slip free, but it suggested that sustained effort might eventually succeed. Was patience my ally, or would discovery come before freedom? No guard had been posted near my platform. The inhabitants moved about their activities without apparent concern for my presence. This struck me as either extreme confidence in their restraint methods or a cultural attitude that viewed escape as impossible or irrelevant. Either way, their lack of direct supervision presented an opportunity. I worked the bindings for what I estimated to be 40 minutes, rotating and twisting until the fibers had loosened enough to pull one hand free. The process abraded my skin and left both wrists red and tender, but I succeeded in removing the restraint entirely. I remained seated, concealing the freed bindings beneath my position, and continued observing. If I moved now, would they notice, or would luck favor me this once? Approximately 60 feet to my right, I noticed two figures on a lower platform. Between them sat Mara and Kellen, both bound in the same manner I had been. Mara appeared conscious but disoriented. Kellen was alert and scanning the environment with the same systematic assessment I was conducting. Neither showed signs of serious injury. The presence of my companions confirmed that capture had been coordinated and deliberate. We had been pursued by multiple individuals working in concert, each targeting a specific member of our group. The execution had been flawless, suggesting experience with this exact scenario. We were not the first humans brought to this settlement. I made the decision to attempt escape, while the inhabitants remained occupied with other tasks. The platform I occupied connected to a larger structure via a vine bridge approximately 12 feet long. Beyond that structure, a ladder descended toward lower levels. If I could reach the ladder undetected and descend to ground level, I might be able to navigate back toward the trail. Would I make it across without alerting them, or was my chance already slipping away? I waited until the nearest visible inhabitants had moved to the far side of the settlement, then rose to a crouch and moved toward the bridge. Each step was placed carefully to minimize sound and vibration. The platform surface was rough but stable underfoot. I reached the bridge and began crossing, gripping the side rails for balance. The bridge swayed more than the platforms, responding to my weight with unsettling flexibility. I moved hand over hand, keeping my center of gravity low and my movements deliberate. Halfway across, I paused to check for observers. The settlement remained active, but no one appeared to be watching my position. I completed the crossing and reached the larger platform. The ladder was immediately accessible, descending from the platform's edge at a steep angle. The rungs were thick vine segments wrapped around two vertical support lines. I tested the first rung with my weight, found it solid, and began descending. The ladder extended approximately 20 feet to another platform at a lower level. From there, a second ladder continued downward. I descended through 3 platform levels, each ladder bringing me closer to the forest floor. At the lowest platform, I could see ground vegetation roughly 30 feet below. The final ladder was longer and showed more wear than the upper sections. Several rungs had been reinforced with additional wrapping. I descended carefully, aware that a fall from this height onto uneven ground could result in broken bones or worse. Could I survive the last stretch without injury? Or was the forest ready to claim me? I was 10 feet from the ground when I heard movement above me. I looked up to see 2 figures descending the same route I had taken. They moved with shocking speed, dropping from rung to rung with barely a pause. Their coordination was perfect. One descended the left support line while the other took the right, boxing me between them. I released my grip and dropped the remaining distance, landing hard and rolling to absorb impact. Pain shot through my left ankle as it took the brunt of my weight. I came up running, limping heavily but mobile. I covered perhaps 20 yards before the first figure landed in front of me. It had not descended. It had jumped from the lowest platform, dropping 30 feet and absorbing the impact with bent knees and forward lean. The second figure landed behind me a moment later, cutting off retreat. The figure in front of me reached out and grasped my right shoulder with a grip that was firm but not painful. The second figure secured my left arm. Together they guided me back toward the ladder. There was no violence, no rough handling, but the message was unambiguous. Escape was not permitted. Was there any hope for negotiation, or was submission my only option? Instead of returning me to the original platform, they directed me toward the central gathering area I had observed earlier. Mara and Kellen were already present, both still bound and flanked by additional inhabitants. The platform was large enough to accommodate perhaps 20 individuals comfortably. Its surface had been worn smooth from repeated use, and the support structure beneath was more elaborate than the residential platforms, suggesting this space held special significance. Mara's eyes met mine as I was brought forward. Her expression conveyed relief at seeing me alive, but also fear regarding our collective circumstances. Kellen's jaw was set in a tight line, his posture rigidly controlled. He was watching everything, cataloging details, waiting for any tactical advantage that might present itself. Could we act together, or were we already outmatched? Then Mara moved. I do not know if she intended to test the boundaries, attempt communication, or simply adjust her position for comfort. She shifted her weight and took a half step toward the platform's left edge. Her bound hands affected her balance, and her foot landed poorly on an uneven section of the platform surface. She went over the edge. I heard Kellen shout. I lunged forward, but two sets of hands clamped onto my shoulders, holding me in place. Mara fell through the gap between platforms, struck a crossbeam with her right side, and tumbled through a secondary level before impacting a lower platform approximately 40 feet below. The sound of impact was distinct and sickening. Several Sasquatches descended immediately toward her position. Kellen and I were held firmly in place, unable to follow. I could see Mara's motionless form on the lower platform, her right arm bent at an impossible angle, blood spreading visibly across her torso and pooling beneath her. A larger Bigfoot approached from one of the enclosed structures. This individual moved with deliberate slowness, carrying a carved wooden container in one hand and a bundle of fresh leaves in the other. The crowd parted immediately, allowing this individual to reach Mara's side without obstruction. Was this figure friend or foe? And what intentions lay behind its careful approach? The figure's size exceeded all others I had observed. Easily 9 feet tall, with a body mass that dwarfed even the largest of its companions. The hair covering was lighter in color, showing patches of silver gray, particularly around the face and shoulders. This suggested advanced age, and the deference shown by the others confirmed elevated status within the group hierarchy. The elder Bigfoot knelt beside Mara with movements that suggested both physical strength and careful control. I watched from the upper platform as it set down the carved container and began methodically processing the bundle of leaves it had brought. The leaves were large, roughly 8 inches in length, with a distinctive gray-green coloration and serrated edges. The structure was unlike any Pacific Northwest plant species I recognized. Using a smooth stone held in one massive hand, the elder crushed the leaves against the wooden container's interior. The motion was practiced and efficient. Each strike of the stone broke down the plant material further until it formed a thick, paste-like consistency. Could this preparation really hold the key to survival? Or was it something else entirely? Mara remained motionless throughout the preparation. Blood continued to spread across the platform surface beneath her torso. Her right arm was visibly fractured, the forearm bent at a midpoint angle that indicated complete bone displacement. Her breathing was shallow and irregular. From my training in wilderness first aid, I recognized these as indicators of severe trauma, likely including internal injuries, fractured ribs, and significant blood loss. The elder Bigfoot completed the paste preparation and moved directly to Mara's injuries. It used both hands to apply the substance, spreading it across the visible lacerations on her arm and torso with surprising gentleness. The paste adhered to the wounds immediately, forming a thick coating that obscured the damaged tissue beneath. The entire process took approximately 3 minutes from the moment the elder arrived to the completion of the wrapping. What happened next challenged every medical understanding I possessed. Had I just witnessed a miracle? Or was there a hidden danger in this intervention? The bleeding stopped within seconds of the paste application, but the cessation of bleeding was only the beginning. Mara's breathing pattern changed within a minute of treatment. The shallow, irregular gasps deepened and steadied into a more normal rhythm. Could her body recover fully, or was this a fragile window of stability? Approximately 4 minutes after the initial treatment, Mara's eyes opened. She drew a deep breath, then another. Her head turned slightly, taking in her surroundings with evident confusion, but without the pain response that should have accompanied such movement, given her injuries. The elder made a low, rumbling vocalization and placed one hand gently on her shoulder, apparently signaling her to remain still. The elder Bigfoot unwrapped the bark covering from Mara's arm. I leaned forward against the hands restraining me, straining to see the revealed tissue. Where a compound fracture had created an unnatural bend, the arm now appeared straight. The skin was intact, no visible breaks, no protruding bone, no lacerations. The only evidence of injury was a faint discoloration where the paste had been applied, similar to old bruising rather than fresh trauma. The other Bigfoot, who had descended to Mara's platform, now ascended, bringing her back to the central gathering area where Kellen and I waited. She walked under her own power, supported lightly by one individual on each side, but bearing her own weight without difficulty. As she reached our level, her eyes met mine with an expression that communicated both relief and profound confusion. Was this a sign of trust, or a prelude to another challenge? The elder Bigfoot dipped 2 fingers into the paste residue and approached Mara first, reaching out to mark her forehead with a horizontal line approximately 3 inches long. The paste left a dark gray-green stain that contrasted sharply against her skin. The elder repeated this marking on Kellen, then on myself. Each application was accompanied by a low vocalization that the surrounding inhabitants echoed in unison. The sound carried weight and formality, suggesting ceremonial language rather than casual communication. Whatever had been performed, it held meaning within their social structure. Following the marking, the atmosphere shifted noticeably. The perimeter formation dissolved as other Bigfoot returned to their previous activities. We were no longer restrained or closely guarded. Instead, 2 Sasquatches positioned themselves near us in what appeared to be escort capacity rather than restraint. They gestured toward one of the connecting bridges, indicating we should move in that direction. The elder had followed our movement through the settlement and now stood beside the cultivated plants. It carefully selected 3 mature leaves. The elder repeated the preparation process we had witnessed earlier, crushing the leaves into paste using the same stone and container. The consistency and color of the resulting mixture matched what had been used on Mara. The elder then approached us, extending the container forward in a presenting gesture while making direct eye contact with each of us in turn. The message seemed clear. We were being shown the plant's properties, its preparation method, and its effectiveness. This demonstration was intentional disclosure, not accidental observation, but the purpose of such disclosure remained unclear. Were we being educated, warned, or tested in some manner? The elder's behavior shifted after completing the plant demonstration. It moved directly in front of Mara. The elder raised one massive hand and performed a deliberate gesture, touching its own mouth with the first 2 fingers, then moving those fingers to its chest over the heart region, then extending the hand outward with palm facing up in what appeared to be a negating or stopping motion. The gesture was repeated 3 times, each iteration slower and more emphatic than the last. The elder maintained eye contact with Mara throughout, clearly demanding acknowledgement. When Mara nodded in understanding, the elder turned to Kellen and performed the same gesture sequence. Kellen nodded immediately. The process was repeated with me. Whatever was being communicated carried extreme importance within their social framework. The message was unmistakable even without shared language. Do not tell others what you have seen here. Could we trust this secrecy? Or would silence cost us more than we realized? Then it gave me the plant itself, its roots intact, placing it into my hands with a weight that felt heavier than soil alone, as if the responsibility of what I was now holding mattered as much as the object itself. Following our acknowledged understanding, the elder gestured toward the outer edge of the settlement. Our escorts moved to flank us, and we were guided along a series of bridges and platforms toward the perimeter. At the settlement's edge, a ladder descended through multiple levels toward the forest floor. Our escorts indicated we should descend first. Kellen went first, followed by Mara, then myself. The escorts did not follow beyond the uppermost platform. They remained there, watching our descent until we reached ground level. We walked for what I estimated to be 15 minutes through uniform forest terrain. The environment showed no distinctive landmarks, no trail markers, no indication of human presence beyond our own footprints in the soft earth. Based on our original hiking position and the direction of our panicked flight, we should have been several miles from any established road or trail. We emerged onto the pavement. The transition was abrupt and jarring. One moment we were moving through dense forest undergrowth. The next moment we stepped from between 2 cedar trees directly onto the shoulder of a paved 2-lane road. The road surface showed recent maintenance, with fresh yellow centerline paint and minimal weathering on the asphalt.